My tractor roared like a dying beast as it lurched downward, nearly slamming my face into the steering wheel. 1 second, I was cruising through the north corn rows on my farm in Willow Creek, Texas, humming a tune, sipping cold coffee from a chipped old thermos. The next I was coughing through a cloud of dust, swearing into the open air, and staring down at a muddy mess. A strange ditch cut straight across my field, turning dry soil into a swamp right under my tires. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I jumped down, heart pounding, boots sinking into mud, up to my ankles. Water flowed in a steady, murky stream, the ditch's edges packed tight like someone knew exactly what they were doing. I stood there, hands on hips, taking in the scene. My tractor stuck deep, the plow tangled in wet earth, water spilling out like it wanted to swallow my family's 50 acres whole. I'd never dug anything here. No warning flags, no notice, no signs, just my good land, now sliced in half by this damn ditch. My head spun with rage and confusion. Who the hell digs a ditch through my property without a word? I muttered, voice hoarse from the dust. I knelt down, running my hand along the edge, trying to pull up a chunk of dirt to gauge its depth, but it wouldn't budge. This ditch was solid, at least half a meter deep, wide enough for water to run smooth like a little creek. I looked closer, spotting a small plastic tag snagged on the bank, a marker with a serial number and a company logo I didn't recognize. I stood up, tracing the water's path with my eyes. It snaked through my land like a silent serpent on a mission. A mission I figured was to ruin my morning, wreck my tractor, and maybe the last shred of sanity I had left. I turned back to the tractor, checking the damage. The plow was jammed, the wheels sunk, and I knew this year's corn crop was toast if the water kept flooding. I pulled out my phone, snapping photos, the murky water, the cracked ditch banks, and that plastic tag dangling like proof of some dumb prank. I'm no engineer, but me, Travis Holt, knew this wasn't natural or an accident. Someone dug it, with machines, with a plan, and they did it without knocking on my door. Me, the legal owner, inheritor of this land from my granddad. Who's got the guts? I growled, voice echoing in the still air, but only the water answered. This ditch didn't just ruin my morning, it trashed my tractor, my field, and maybe the crop I'd sweated over all year. I spat into the dirt, staring at the flowing water like it was a challenge. If this was those Silver Pines folks, if that damn Homeowners Association HOA thought they could dig up my land without paying a price, they were dead wrong. I grabbed a nearby bucket, scooping water and tossing it aside, knowing it wouldn't change a thing. But I swore to myself, I'll find out who did this, and when I do, they'll regret picking the wrong guy to mess with. That plastic tag with its weird logo dangled in my mind like a wordless question. I wasn't letting this slide like water down that damn ditch. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through Mason County's website, hunting for notices, permits, anything explaining why my land got carved up with no heads up. Nothing. No emails, no notes taped to my door, not a single line from the county or a utility company. I tossed the phone onto the tractor seat, mad enough to punch something. I decided to follow the water. I walked along the ditch, boots squelching in mud, eyes locked on it like some amateur detective. It curved through my land, slicing through the corn rows, then disappeared into a thicket of low trees bordering Silver Pines, that fancy neighborhood with pristine white houses and lawns trimmed like magazine spreads. I stopped, peering over the wooden fence, separating my land from theirs. The water flowed straight into a small man-made pond, glinting in the sun, next to some benches, and a sign reading, Silver Pines Community Area. My heart pounded harder. This wasn't random. Someone in Silver Pines did this. I trudged back to the barn, feet heavy but mind racing. I'd set up security cameras around the farm ever since someone tried stealing my chickens. I fired up the computer, pulling footage from the past few days. And there it was, just like I suspected. 2 white trucks with no plates rolled in at dawn, parking right at my property line. A crew in reflective vests hopped out like commandos. No knocking, no hesitation. They hauled out a mini excavator, shovels and rolls of pipe, digging clean and fast, like they knew they shouldn't be there. I watched, jaw dropped. They cut through my land, laid pipe, packed the banks, then covered their tracks like nothing happened. The whole job took less than 3 hours. Before the sun was fully up, I rewound the footage, gripping the mouse so tight, I nearly snapped it. Those bastards, I muttered, voice rough with anger. This wasn't an accident or a public project. This was organized trespassing, and I'd bet Silver Pines HOA was behind it. They'd always eyed my land like a juicy steak, just out of reach. The last free piece not bowing to their stupid rules. But digging a ditch through my property without permission, that was a step too far, too dumb, and I wasn't letting them off easy. Still fuming, I heard an engine outside. I ran to the window, spotting a shiny black SUV pulling up. The door opened, and out stepped Marlene Voss, Silver Pines HOA president, in an expensive suit and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I knew her from a few community meetings I grudgingly attended. Marlene walked up, clipboard in hand, striding like she owned the world, including my land. "Oh Travis, good, you've seen our new project," she chirped, her voice fake sweet like cheap syrup. "What project?" I roared, stepping onto the porch, hands still caked in mud. "You mean the ditch that trashed my tractor and trespassed on my land?" Marlene waved a hand, like I was overreacting. "It's a community project, for irrigation and beautification. We thought you wouldn't mind." I gritted my teeth, blood rushing to my head. "Wouldn't mind? This is my land, Marlene. You've got no right to dig anything here." She smiled, the kind of smile that made me want to punch something. "Come on, Travis. Don't stress about it. It's for the greater good." I stared at her, then at the ditch out there, and I knew Marlene and her damn HOA had just lit the fuse on a war they didn't see coming. I stormed back inside, head still buzzing with rage. She said greater good, without even asking. I wasn't letting this go. I sank into my chair, replaying the security footage from the garden camera, rewinding, pausing, zooming in. One truck, no plates, no company logo, just a guy in a baseball cap, and that plastic tag I'd picked up in the field, stamped with a weird symbol and a short serial number. I snapped a screenshot, sent it to my phone, then stood grabbing my truck keys. If anyone could make sense of this, it was one person. I called Eddie Crane, my old buddy, the paranoid guy who thought Willow Creek's pigeons were government spy drones. It sounded nuts, but Eddie had an eye for things others missed, and right now I needed that brain. Eddie showed up in under half an hour, driving his rusty truck, toting a flashlight, a folding chair, and a bag of beef jerky. I led him to the field, pointing at the ditch now pooling more water after a light rain. "Look at this," I said, voice hoarse with anger. "Those bastards at Silver Pines dug this without a word to me." Eddie crouched, shining his flashlight on the banks, chewing jerky thoughtfully. "I'd bet it's the HOA," he said, eyes lighting up like he'd cracked a case. "They want water for their fancy little pond. Or worse, selling it to someone. I don't trust the government, but I trust that HOA crowd even less." I smirked, despite myself. Eddie could go overboard, but he wasn't wrong. Silver Pines and their HOA had been overstepping for too long. They controlled everything in their neighborhood. Roads, trash, even the streetlights. But my land was out of their grasp. I was the last free piece they couldn't tame, and maybe this ditch was their way of sticking their nose in. I sat next to Eddie on his folding chair, watching the water flow. "If it's them, what do I do?" I muttered, more to myself than him. Eddie shrugged, popping another piece of jerky. "Get proof, beat 'em at their own game." He was right, but I needed more perspective. I thought of Clara Dunn, the old lady a mile from my farm who'd once told me how the HOA pressured her to sell land for their expansion. I drove to her place, knocked, and Clara answered with sharp eyes, despite being past 70. I told her about the ditch, the footage, and my suspicions about Silver Pines. Clara sank into her armchair, hand on her chin. "I'm not surprised," she said, voice low but firm. "Years back they tried forcing me to sell my creekside plot for community benefit. I said no, and they cut off my well water for a month till I threatened to sue. Marlene Voss was the ringleader. She's greedier than a fox in a henhouse." I clenched my jaw, heat rising inside me. I got home as the sky turned gray, head still buzzing from what Eddie and Clara had said. This wasn't just a misdig, it was a scheme. And Marlene, with her Silver Pines HOA, was behind it all. I replayed the footage, this time zooming in. 5:17 a.m., white trucks, guys in reflective vests, digging my land like they owned it. I pulled out the muddy plastic tag, holding it under the lamp, unfamiliar logo. Not county, not any utility. I knew. I tossed it on the table, the dry clack, snapping the last thread of my patience. "You think I'll let this slide, Marlene?" They weren't just trespassing, they were profiting off my land, and I wasn't letting it die quietly. I did what any landowner in this century would: grab my phone, took more shots of the ditch, murky water, packed banks, and that weird logo tag. I uploaded the security footage to my computer, clipping the clearest part: white trucks, reflective vest, crew digging my land at dawn. I posted it all publicly on the local social media group, captioning it, "Silver Pines dug a ditch through my land without permission. Anyone know about this?" I added a QR code, linking to the full video, then hit send. My heart pounded, but I knew I'd just lobbed a grenade into Marlene's beehive. I didn't stop there. I drove out to the field, hauling a dozen wooden stakes and a hammer. I pounded them along the ditch on my land, hanging homemade signs. Private property, no trespassing. I wanted Marlene and her cronies to see it clear. This was my land, not their playground. I stepped back, eyeing the stakes in the afternoon sun, feeling like I'd drawn a line they couldn't cross. Less than a day later, I heard about an HOA meeting at Silver Pines. I decided to go, bringing my photos and a printed still from the footage. The meeting room was packed, residents whispering as I walked in, papers in hand like some rookie lawyer. Marlene stood at the head of the table, fake smile plastered on. "Travis, here to chime in for the community," she said, voice sweet as rotten honey. "Chime in," I roared, slamming the photos on the table. "This is my land, Marlene. You dug a ditch through it without a word to me. Explain that." The room went dead quiet, eyes darting from me to her. She blinked, but recovered fast. "It's a community project," she said, flipping her clipboard like she was reading a script. "We voted to expand irrigation. It's for the greater good." "Voted," I shouted, voice booming through the room. "You don't vote on my land. This is private property, not your park to mess with." A few people nodded, but Marlene waved me off like I was a kid throwing a fit. "Travis, you don't even use all that land. It's just a field. We figured you wouldn't mind it helping the area." I gritted my teeth, blood rushing to my head. "Wouldn't mind. It wrecked my tractor, flooded my field. And you've got the nerve to say I wouldn't mind." Residents started murmuring, some pulling out phones to check my post. Marlene narrowed her eyes, smile fading. "Calm down," she said, voice stiffening. "It's the only route for water to reach the main road. You're the only one standing in the way." "Standing in the way?" I scoffed. "I'll really stand in the way when I sue you in court." Marlene smirked, that smirk that made me want to slam the table. "If you want to play legal, go ahead. Everything's above board." But I caught the tremor in her voice. She was bluffing, and I knew it. I left the meeting with my blood boiling, but I saw what I needed. Wavering glances, whispers among the seats. Seeds of doubt had taken root. The next morning, a sheet of paper taped tight to my barn door greeted me with cold language. "Cease obstructing the community project, or face legal action." I crumpled it in my fist, tossing it to the ground like trash. They thought that'd make me back off. Naive. I checked my phone. My post from last night had spread like wildfire. Comments piled up, and then the questions started cutting deep. Does the HOA really have the right to do this? If Marlene still thought she controlled this game, she'd misjudged me. I looked down at the floor, where the paper scraps lay scattered like evidence of a war no one had declared, but had already begun. They thought I'd bow? Not a chance. Marlene's face from the meeting yesterday, that half smile and confident tone insisting, everything's above board. It was an unspoken confession to it all. This wasn't just a ditch. It was a calculated grab. A theft dressed up as community good. And I wasn't letting them profit off my land without a fight. I called Sophie Holt, my cousin, a land lawyer in Austin. Sophie's the type who treats laws like a chess game, always 3 moves ahead. I told her everything. The ditch, wrecking my tractor, the camera footage, the standoff with Marlene, and the HOA's nonsense letter. She listened, then snorted over the phone. "No permits, no easement rights, nothing," she said, voice sharp as a blade. "They went rogue, Travis. Let me check the county records. If there's no paperwork, that ditch is yours, and they'll pay for it." Sophie worked fast. That night she emailed me a stack of documents from Mason County. No permits, no surveys, no agreements tied to my land. The HOA had acted like a gang of thieves, digging the ditch without even bothering to hide it, or they thought I was too dumb to notice. Sophie smirked over a video call, her eyes glinting like a wolf on the hunt. "It gets juicier," she said. "They partnered with Greenfield Agribusiness, a big farming outfit." I dug up internal emails. HOA gave Greenfield water rights from the ditch in exchange for monthly lease fees. "They turned your land into their faucet without paying you a cent." I stared at the screen, fists clenched so tight my knuckles went white. "They're selling water from my land," I roared, voice echoing in the barn. Sophie nodded. "Yep, they're profiting off your property, thinking you wouldn't catch on. Marlene and her crew are greedy and stupid." I stood, pacing back and forth, mind spinning. They didn't just dig a ditch, they turned my land into a cash flow, and I was the idiot left watching. But then I grinned, slow and sharp. If they thought this ditch was their big move, I'd turn it into my own weapon. The next morning, my phone rang. A deep, slightly rushed voice. "Travis Holt? Jasper Reed, Clear Flow Irrigation. I saw your post about that ditch." I frowned, sinking into a chair. "Yeah, so what?" Jasper chuckled over the line. "I've been trying to break into this area for a year, but Greenfield and the HOA blocked me with exclusive deals. You just cracked open a back door with your tractor. I smirked, starting to like this guy. What do you mean? Jasper explained. Clearflow was a local water management company, aiming to offer cheaper irrigation to Silver Pines and nearby farms. But Greenfield and the HOA had the market locked down. If I can use your land, he said, I can redirect that ditch, build a pump station, and serve the whole area for half Greenfield's price. What do you say? I didn't need to think long. Can you pull it off? I asked, tapping the table. Absolutely, Jasper shot back. I'll do it legit. Permits, surveys, the works. You lease me the land. I pay you, and we crush that HOA together. I laughed loud, feeling lighter for the first time in days. Deal. I'm in. I called Sophie back, laying out the plan. She giggled, already drafting a lease for Clearflow. This isn't just a lawsuit anymore, she said. You've turned that ditch into leverage. Legal, clean, and a slap in Marlene's face. I looked out at the field through the window, watching the water stream through the ditch like an arrogant streak from the HOA. Now I didn't see a nuisance. I saw opportunity, ripe, flowing, and all mine. I took a sip of coffee, the heat nothing compared to the anger simmering in my chest. Marlene thought she had the upper hand. She just handed me a counterstrike without knowing it. I'd drag her and that damn HOA to court. And before the trial even started, I had Jasper. The call lasted 10 minutes, but it was enough to flip the script. Jasper didn't just know land law. He knew how the HOA had twisted rules before to profit off community projects. His info made it crystal clear that ditch wasn't just wrong. It was illegal. Now I had what I needed, and this time I'd be the one steering. Jasper wasn't all talk. The next morning, his crew rolled up with excavators, pipes, and a plan mapped out to the inch. We're redirecting this ditch, Jasper said, pointing at a sketch on paper. Water'll flow through a small pump station on your land, then split off to Silver Pines and the farms around here. Legal, transparent, and half Greenfield's cost. I smirked, nodding. Do it. I want Marlene to see this from her window. Jasper's team moved fast. They dug a new branch off the old ditch, channeling water through a corner of my land where they set up the pump station, a little metal box with a humming pump, enough to serve the whole area. I stood there, hands on hips, watching the water bend to my will. Every drop through that station was a slap to the HOA's face. I sipped my coffee, feeling like a general reclaiming territory. But Marlene didn't sit still. Less than 2 days later, I saw the first sign of retaliation. I went out to check the pump station, only to find an oily sheen streaking the water, stinking like old gas. Someone had dumped it in the ditch, trying to clog the pump. I gritted my teeth, looking around. One of the wooden stakes I'd planted along the ditch was smashed, the private property sign lying in the mud. You old fox, I muttered, thinking of Marlene right away. She wanted to play dirty. Fine. I had moves too. I headed back to the barn, grabbing extra security cameras and some auto sprinklers I'd used to scare crows off the cornfield. I set them up around the pump station, wired to motion lights. Anyone sneaking close would get blasted with water on the spot. I checked my public post again. Silver Pines residents were buzzing, some messaging to ask if I could supply their water. I smirked, thinking, Marlene, you just shot yourself in the foot. That night I sat in the barn, eyes glued to the camera feed. Near midnight, a figure loomed into view. Hoodie up, bucket in hand, creeping toward the pump station. I held my breath, then burst out laughing as the sprinklers kicked on. Water blasted the guy's face, hard enough to knock him into the mud, bucket flying. He scrambled up, bolting into the dark, leaving a slimy mud trail. I rewound the clip, laughing till my sides hurt. Keep trying, Marlene, I muttered, saving the video. This was gold, and I'd use it. The next morning, I posted the clip to my public thread, adding HOA sent someone to sabotage my ditch. Who wants clean water? No middleman. The video spread like wildfire. Silver Pines split. Some laughed it up, calling it Marlene's flop. Others defended her, saying I was ruining the community. I didn't care. I'd planted the seed, and it was sprouting. But Marlene wasn't done. That afternoon, I got an email from her, less cocky than before. Travis, we should meet to discuss mutual benefits. I believe we can resolve this misunderstanding. I scoffed, tossing the phone on the table. Mutual benefits. She was panicking. Her counsel must have seen the video, heard the residents murmuring, and knew their game was crumbling. Sophie and Jasper had my back from the start, and now the ditch wasn't just a tool to fight Marlene. It was the weapon I'd use to end her game. She might think she could smooth it over with sweet talk, but she was wrong. If she wanted to meet, I was ready. But not at her coffee table. This time, we'd face off in the Mason County courtroom, where shady deals had no place to hide. Sophie worked like a storm. After I sent her the sabotage clip and Marlene's email, she drafted a cease and desist letter to the HOA, demanding they stop all activity tied to the ditch on my land. At the same time, she filed a lawsuit, trespassing, fraud, abuse of authority. They've got no legs to stand on, Sophie said over the phone, voice buzzing with excitement. No permits, no easement, and now video of sabotage. You're winning this, Travis. I didn't sit idle waiting. I went out to the field, bought more stakes and new signs. This time reading, private property trespassers will be prosecuted. I hammered them along the ditch, adding QR codes, linking to my post, now packed with photos, videos, and Marlene's email. I wanted all of Willow Creek to see. I wasn't just defending my land, I was exposing Silver Pines. Jasper called while I was staking, laughing loud over the line. Residents are asking me about water from your pump. Marlene's losing her grip. The trial came faster than I expected. I walked into Mason County Courthouse, clutching the stack of papers. Sophie prepped, feeling like a farmer lost in a lawyer flick. The courtroom hummed with fluorescent lights and the smell of burnt coffee. Marlene sat across, in a gray suit, 2 HOA members quiet beside her, and a lawyer who looked fresh out of college. I smirked. She thought polish would save her. Sophie stood, sharp as a blade. She laid it out step by step. No permits, no notice, footage of trucks digging my land at dawn, and the secret greenfield agribusiness deal she'd dug up from county records. They turned Mr. Holt's land into a profit stream without paying him a cent, Sophie said, voice ringing through the room. She flashed up screenshots of the ditch, the sabotage video, and Marlene's mutual benefits email. Proof she knew she was wrong, but tried to cover it anyway. Then came the knockout. Sophie called Henry Tate, an HOA member I'd never met. Henry took the stand, silver hair, slightly shaky, but eyes fierce. I didn't sign off on this, he testified. Voice low. Marlene called it a community project, but I found receipts. HOA took tens of thousands from Greenfield for water from that ditch. No one told Mr. Holt. The room buzzed. I glanced at Marlene. Her face flushed, hands gripping her clipboard tight. The judge, a middle-aged guy with thick glasses, cut in. Miss Voss, did you consult the landowner before digging? Marlene stammered, voice trembling. We thought community benefit outweighed individual rights here. The judge frowned. That's not how land law works. Marlene's lawyer tried to salvage it, calling the ditch a community upgrade. But Sophie countered with property maps, proving my land was private, no public easement. She capped it with the sabotage video. The guy flopping in the mud drew laughs from the room, except Marlene. The judge banged his gavel, ruling swift. HOA's suit dismissed, my countersuit upheld. They'd pay damages, cover legal fees, and the ditch on my land was mine. They couldn't touch it anymore. I walked out, Sophie clapping my shoulder, grinning wide. They're done, Travis. Now you can do whatever with that ditch. I looked at the sky, smirking. Marlene and Silver Pines just dug their own grave, and I was the one with the shovel. I dialed Jasper. Get that pump station ready, I said, voice buzzing. We're going big. I want water from this ditch hitting every house in Silver Pines. Cheaper, cleaner, no Marlene. Jasper laughed hard over the line. My crew will be done in 2 days. Get ready, Marlene. You won't stay calm for long. His team came back, finishing the pump station, adding pipes to distribute water beyond my land. I stood there, watching the flow run through the station. No longer HOA's but mine. A direct smack to their arrogance. Jasper and I didn't stop at setup. We printed bright green flyers, spread them across Silver Pines. Clean water, cheap, no HOA. I listed prices, half Greenfield agribusiness, no binding contracts, no hidden fees. I wanted residents to see. They didn't need the HOA for good water. Jasper threw in free hookups for early signups. I smirked, picturing Marlene's face as her neighbors lined up at my pump. Residents bit fast. My phone rang off the hook. Dozens asking if I could pipe water to their homes. A guy named Miles Porter called direct, voice thick with frustration. I pay hundreds a month for Greenfield water. Half the time it's spotty. Marlene calls it community funds, but I bet she's pocketing plenty. I scoffed. You're right. You've got a choice now. Miles grunted over the line. I'm with you, and I'll drag more along. Marlene felt the heat. Her email hit the next morning, less syrupy than before. Travis, we need a formal meeting to discuss shared benefits. The council wants to settle this quietly before it goes further. I smirked, tossing the phone on the table. Goes further. I muttered. You sent it further when you dug through my land. She was rattled. I could see it in every word. Her counsel must have seen the flyers, heard the chatter, and knew their game was fading. I didn't reply. Instead, Jasper and I doubled down. We dropped a second flyer, bold print. Better water, no HOA. Coming soon. I added a small line. Ask your HOA where the water money's going. Residents moved. Miles called back, saying he and others hit an HOA meeting, waving flyers like battle flags. They can't dodge it anymore, he said. I want Marlene to explain. That meeting turned into a mess, per Miles' recap. Marlene stood before the crowd, trying to stay cool, but residents wouldn't have it. Miles held up a flyer, shouting how long you been taking Greenfield cash. Where's the money? Marlene stumbled, calling it community funds, but no one bought it. Another yelled, I want a refund. Then like a slow-motion bomb, Miles stood, motioning to oust Marlene as HOA president. I wasn't there, but Miles texted after, she's toast, Travis. Full vote against her. Marlene fell fast, just like I'd figured. Word spread, she bolted from Silver Pines days later, selling her house quick and cheap. I stood in my field, watching the pump station hum, water flowing steady to homes, once choked by the HOA. Jasper called, laughing hard. You just took over this area, Travis. Residents are lining up a mile long to sign up with us. I smirked, eyeing the water now mine. Jasper's pump station ran smooth, piping water to Silver Pines homes where folks finally had a real choice. Marlene was gone, her HOA crew crumbled, and now clean cheap water reached people with no middleman. But me and Jasper. The court wind still buzzed in me, and the flyer stunt had stripped her of all dignity. But I knew it wasn't over. My goal wasn't just to protect my land. I wanted to make it something bigger, and Jasper saw it too. Jasper rang me a few days after Marlene skipped town. Travis, we've got a gold mine here, he said, voice crackling with excitement over the phone. Silver Pines residents want our water, but I'm thinking bigger. 3 more nearby areas around Willow Creek need service too. I want to build a solar-powered water station right on your land. Make it a distribution hub. What do you think? I smirked, glancing at the ditch now mine. Can you pull it off? Jasper laughed loud. Damn right. You give me the land, I give you a stake in clear flow, and we'll crush every HOA in the region. I didn't need long to decide. Deal, I said, tapping the table, but I want it big, real big. Jasper wasn't bluffing. His crew rolled back in, hauling solar panels, new pumps, and a detailed plan. They built the new water station next to the ditch, taller, sleeker, with enough juice to serve Silver Pines and 3 other areas. I stood there, watching water flow through the system, feeling like I'd turned a patch of inherited dirt into a powerhouse my granddad couldn't have dreamed up. Jasper and I threw an opening bash right on my field. I set up a big tent, dragged out tables and chairs, hired a food truck with free sandwiches and lemonade. Jasper printed Clear Flow People's water flags, handed them out. Silver Pines folks showed up in droves, toting folding chairs, kids running around the pump station like it was a new park. Miles Porter, the guy who'd toppled Marlene, came with a grin splitting his face. You did it, Travis, he said, clapping my shoulder. This whole area owes you big. I didn't just want a party, I wanted them to remember. Jasper grabbed a mic, explaining how the station worked. Solar-powered, cheap, no hidden fees. I stepped up, holding a cup of water from the station, drinking it in front of everyone. This is water from my land, I said, voice booming through the speakers. No one takes it without asking anymore. Now it's ours, yours. The crowd clapped, some yelling Travis, like I was some hero. I smirked, thinking, Marlene choke if she saw this. Word spread fast. Landowners from other Texas spots started calling, asking how I beat my HOA. A guy in Redstone messaged, they're trying to run a road through my land. How'd you win? I told him the whole deal. Cameras, lawsuit, teaming up with Jasper, and gave him Sophie's number. I didn't expect to become an HOA busting expert, but I liked the vibe. Jasper even pitched me as a Clear Flow advisor, handing me cards reading Travis Holdmarter manager. I laughed hard, stuffing it in my pocket, thinking, farmer turned manager, who'd have guessed? Silver Pines folks started calling me Water Wrangler, the Water Tamer. It sounded a bit goofy, but I didn't mind. I walked by the pump station daily, seeing water flow steady, knowing it wasn't just water, it was freedom, power I'd snatched back from Marlene's grip. Jasper said revenue was soaring, and my first cut from the stake came in, enough to fix the tractor and buy more land if I wanted. But I wasn't rushing. I liked standing here, watching the ditch that was once a nightmare turn into a victory symbol. The coffee in my hand cooled, but the sight ahead warmed me up. The solar-powered station gleamed in the sunset's blaze, water streaming through pipes, smooth and steady, like a new lifeline. That ditch, once a scar on this land, had become a vein, feeding a whole community. Marlene Voss was gone, Silver Pines wasn't the same, and me, Travis Holt, went from an angry farmer with a busted tractor to the water wrangler folks couldn't stop talking about. Smirking, I looked back on this ride, feeling a strange peace rise in me. Jasper's new station didn't just serve Silver Pines, it piped water to 3 nearby areas, making my land the heart of a network no HOA could touch. I heard from Miles Porter, Silver Pines' new council, sans Marlene now held open meetings, too scared to pull old tricks. Residents got cheap, clean water, and for the first time they had a voice. I didn't do it for them. I did it for my land, for principle. But I won't lie, it felt good seeing them break free from the crew that had held them down. Marlene, rumor had it, moved to Redstone, a few dozen miles off. I heard she tried joining their HOA, but someone sent a link to my post, photos, videos, the lawsuit, and her application got deferred indefinitely. I smirked, picturing her in her new place, staring out the window with no sway left. Her old Silver Pines house now belonged to a young couple. They put up a slide in the yard, and named their water hookup Crisis Canal Over. I sent them a welcome basket, tossing in a coffee mug like mine. They earned it. I sipped my coffee, eyeing the pump station standing tall on my land. It wasn't just machinery, it was proof I stood up when someone tried to knock me down. Marlene and the HOA thought they could dig through my land unnoticed, that I'd stay quiet while they cashed in on my ancestors' sweat. They were wrong. I noticed, I cared, and I pushed back. Not with fists or guns, but with cameras, law, and a busted tractor at the right moment. I smirked, thinking, she didn't know who I was, but now this whole region does. Jasper texted me last week. Clear Flow was booming, and he wanted me as an official advisor. I said yes, not for the cash, though my stake could buy a new tractor and then some, but because I liked keeping things right. I didn't want anyone else in Willow Creek or beyond getting crushed by an HOA like I almost did. I walked through the field, boots squishing on dry dirt, eyeing the old ditch now quiet underground, a relic of Marlene's stupidity. I left it there, a warning to anyone dumb enough to try again. I stopped near the pump station, watching the sky turn orange and gold. A year ago no one believed a quiet field would become the region's fastest water hub, and definitely not because an HOA tried sneaking a ditch through it. But here I stood, on land I'd fought to keep, and it wasn't just land anymore, it was property. Power, something I made mine. I raised my coffee mug, took the last sip, feeling like I'd closed a chapter I never knew I'd write. I knew Marlene might not be done for good. People like her don't vanish easy. Maybe she'd come back, with a new scheme, a new fake smile. But I wasn't worried. I had Sophie, Jasper, Miles, and this whole region behind me. I had the pump station, the ditch, and a lesson carved deep. When someone tries taking what's mine, I don't just take it back. I make it bigger, stronger, and turn it into something they'll never forget. I headed home, steps light on the land I'd battled to hold. This game started with a misdug ditch, but it ended with a network I built. I was ready for whatever came next, because now I wasn't just Travis Holt, the farmer. I was the guy with the shovel, and I wasn't afraid to dig back if I had to. The story HOA dug a canal through my lot, so I diverted it, and leased it to their competitor. Reflects a raw slice of life in the US today. The clash between individual rights and collective power, especially in communities with homeowners associations HOAs. Travis Holt, a farmer in Willow Creek, Texas, faced Silver Pines HOA digging a ditch through his land without permission. A scenario echoing common land and usage disputes in America, where HOAs often overstep to impose their will on residents. From Marlene Voss embodying the arrogance and greed of some organizations, to Travis wielding law, partnering with Jasper Reed, and airing proof on social media, the tale shows how Americans today fight to protect their rights in a competitive, sometimes unfair society. The takeaway here isn't just stand up for yourself, it's how to do it in today's world. Travis didn't swing fists, he used tech security cameras to catch the trespass, social media to spread the truth, and the legal system with Sophie Holt's help to win the case. He teamed with Jasper, turning a setback the ditch into a win the pump station, showing the value of finding allies and leveraging what's on hand. In modern American life, where private property's prized but vulnerable to overreach by groups or power players, you've got to stay sharp, gather evidence, and use tools like law or community to shield yourself. Travis's public moves with flyers and videos also remind you that transparency and linking up with like-minded folks, like Miles Porter and Silver Pines residents, can flip the script on the powerful. Learn from Travis, don't just get mad, get smart, persistent, and turn trouble into leverage to stake your place in today's America. Subscribe to follow our journey of defending land and turning a ditch into a victory. Together, we can take down any Marlene out there. Thanks for riding along with me in Willow Creek. See you in the next video with more fight stories and hot coffee.